Hey guys, I hope you're having an awesome day. I want to talk a little bit about credibility and bias today. So, as you are getting some of your first research, you're just kind of gathering some sources. As you start to dig into those more, you really want to pay attention to the credibility of your source. Credibility just means how trustworthy it is. And it's really important to pay attention to credibility because if you pay attention to an untrustworthy source, if you listen to an untrustworthy source and then you use that information in your argument, you're going to be in a bad situation. You're going to be not very credible. Like, people aren't going to trust you if they know that's not a trustworthy source. If they don't know it's not a trustworthy source, then your information is still misleading and your argument might have some incorrect information in it or something that doesn't really make sense. And you don't want to be in that position. So you really want to make sure that your sources are credible. There are 5 things that we want to look at when we're trying to think about credibility. The currency, which is like when it was written, the relevance, like how does it connect to your questions, the authority, like who wrote it, the accuracy, like how true is it, and the purpose, which is where that bias piece comes in. So if the purpose of something is to, give really good support for one side of an argument, that could be okay, but it could also be like propaganda, depending on what you're talking about. So you want to make sure that the purpose is more informational, more honest. You want to make sure if it is supposed to be persuasive that your author is upfront with that. You can use information that is biased, but not something that's like sneaky. Sneaky bias usually means that it's maybe not true or not as believable. Like if I'm trying to talk about the effects of sugar on the body and I use a study from Coca-Cola that says sugar's great and we should all drink tons of sugar, that's probably not going to be the most credible source ever, so you want to be careful. So I'm going to use some of this to look through. I put some questions here that you can use. I've uploaded these notes onto Canvas if you just want to look through them, but I'm going to go through one of my examples and kind of ask some of these questions. So I already went through a couple and already ruled them out because they weren't relevant to what I was talking about. I don't want to use irrelevant information. They just weren't really talking about the thing I wanted to talk about. So I just, after skimming, I was like, oh, this is about something else. So I already cut those out. There are a couple, Okay, so if I open my first one, it is a study. If I ask currency, my first thing I need to know is when it was published. So it was published in World Psychiatry in 2019. So that's pretty recent. That's not like yesterday, but it's also not that long ago. It's pretty close. I'm not worried about that time period. I think that'll be pretty good. What other? Revised or updated is up to date. So when I think about my topic, and that's like the internet's effect on the brain, I can use research from a year ago. I think that's fine. That's pretty up to date. Again, it's not the most up to date, but it's pretty up to date. People have kind of been talking about that for like 10 or so years, more than that since the internet existed, but like people have been talking about this for a while, so a year ago is not too old in my opinion. There are topics where a year ago would be too old. There are topics where even a week ago could be too old, depending on how current your topic is. So be careful when you're looking at time. Sometimes old is going to be a problem, sometimes it's not. It just depends on your topic. Okay, so currency seems pretty good. Next is relevance. So we want to know if it goes with what I'm talking about and if I can read it. So it says, the impact of the internet across multiple aspects of modern society is clear. However, the influence that it may have on brain structure and functioning remains a central topic of investigation. It says some stuff about attention capacities, memory process, and social cognition. And those are the things I was kind of thinking of. So it looks like it's going to be relevant. And just reading through a little bit of it for me, This seems perfectly readable. I don't think I'll have a problem reading that. So I'm not worried about the relevancy. Okay, authority. So who are the people who are writing this? Looks like we've got all of these authors, and it looks like they are, that looks like they work for universities, mostly in Australia, Boston, London, more Australia, Belgium, all over the world. So psychiatrists or professors from all over the world studying psychiatry. So that seems pretty cool. That seems like we know who the authors are. It's not a secret, and their credentials are right there. They seem qualified to write about this topic since they work for these universities. It looks like 1 through 3 is this one person, so they've got it connected. They've got all their credentials, so that seems pretty good. They seem like they're reliable for this source. Where does the information come from? Can you verify it from another source? Okay, it looks like it says here we draw on recent psychological, psychiatric, and neuroimaging findings to examine several key hypotheses on how the internet may be changing our cognitions. So it looks like they kind of reviewed several different things in order to find this, or like did some surveys and things like that. I would have to read it more carefully, so I'm going to keep my eye on that as I am thinking about this article. I'm going to keep my eye on accuracy. It's a scientific study, so I don't know that I can, or a literature review, I can't quite tell. But it's, an article in a scientific magazine. It's an article in World Psychiatry, sorry. So it's an article in World Psychiatry. It seems like, I don't know if I can confirm it elsewhere, but I can look as I'm finding more information from it. So I want to keep my eye on that, but it seems relatively reliable. If it was published in a big magazine about psychiatry, a scholarly magazine, then that seems like it's probably a pretty reliable source. So that seems good. Okay, and then what is the purpose of the information? As I'm looking at it, it looks like the purpose is to bring together this information and see if their hypotheses are correct, like see if how and if the internet is changing cognition, the way people think. So that seems to go with what I'm talking about. That doesn't seem terribly biased. It seems to be more scientific, an examination of what they're noticing rather than like an opinion about it, if that makes sense. The language, for the most part, seemed pretty impartial. It seemed pretty straightforward at first glance. So I think that this one seems like a good one to continue exploring. Sorry, not the right document there. Oh, that's because I should be here. So we're going to go ahead and mark this one green. That's one I definitely want to read the whole thing because it seems like it's going to be good. So I'm just marking that one green because I want to definitely read through the whole thing and use that one. You might find more that look more like this. You might find some that look more like this one. You're going to want to look like, is there an author's name? When was it published? Are there links or information? So like this seems to cite some different universities and stuff. Those are the kind of things you want to look for when you are looking for credibility and bias. There's nothing that is super like, yes, this is always credible, and no, this is never credible. Like, sometimes the URL, like an edu or a .gov, can be helpful, but a .org or a .net, those don't really mean anything. So don't take those too seriously. You can look at those information if it seems like reliable information. If your answers to these questions seem like it's good, then probably go for it. If you are stuck on an article and you're just not sure, reach out to me so that I can help you decide or figure it out. Like I said, these notes are up on Canvas, so you can use these questions as you're going through some of your sources and seeing if they're ones you want to explore more deeply or not. So today, what I want you to do is, after you've watched this, go ahead and take the quick little quiz on Canvas over what we just talked about. It's open note. You can take it 2 times. Let me know if you get stuck somewhere. Then continue compiling sources for your research and adding them to your Google Doc. And then start looking for the credibility. Maybe mark them up like I did with some reds and yellows and greens, or another color code if you want a different color code. Or just get rid of the ones you don't want to use completely. But mark the ones you want to keep and definitely look at first on there. Like I said previously, you might have to go back and do more research as you start reading and learning more. You might find more things to search for. So keep that in mind as you are researching. All right, guys, have a good day. Let me know if you need anything.